What if the man who made America laugh every Thursday night died alone, broke, and forgotten? Flip Wilson's mansion in Malibu sits empty today, hiding dark secrets about the comedian's tragic final years. Behind the peeling paint and broken windows lies a story of fame, fortune, and a devastating fall that shocked Hollywood forever. From poverty to primetime glory. Before Flip Wilson became the man who made millions laugh every Thursday night, he was just Claro Wilson Jr., a forgotten kid bouncing between foster homes in Jersey City. Born on December 8, 1933, Claro knew abandonment before he knew love. His mother left when he was 7 years old. His father, a handyman who could barely support himself, sent Claro and his siblings to foster care rather than watch them starve. Life in those foster homes was harsh and unpredictable. Claro learned early that making people laugh was his ticket to survival. When the other kids picked on him, he cracked jokes. When foster parents got angry, he did impressions that made them smile instead of reaching for the belt. Comedy became his shield against a world that seemed determined to break him. At 16, Claro lied about his age and joined the United States Air Force. For the first time in his life, he had 3 meals a day and a roof over his head. But more importantly, he discovered he had a gift. During long nights on base, Claro entertained his fellow airmen with stories and characters that had them rolling on the floor laughing. He created voices and personalities that seemed to come from nowhere, each one funnier than the last. One character stood out from the rest. Claro would flip his voice high and sassy, becoming a bold woman who said exactly what she thought. The soldiers loved this mysterious lady, and Claro knew he had something special. When he left the Air Force in 1954, he took that character with him. The transition to civilian life was brutal. Claro performed in tiny clubs for pocket change, sleeping in cars and eating 1 meal a day. But he never gave up on that sassy female character he had created on the Air Force Base. He refined her, gave her a name, and watched audiences fall in love with Geraldine Jones. By the early 1960s, Claro had adopted the stage name Flip Wilson. He appeared on variety shows like The Tonight Show and The Ed Sullivan Show, where his characters, especially Geraldine, captivated viewers across America. Geraldine was revolutionary. Here was a black male comedian playing a bold, confident woman who owned every room she entered. Television executives had never seen anything like it. The phone call came in 1970. The National Broadcasting Company wanted to give Flip Wilson his own variety show, making him the first African-American to host a successful weekly series on network television. As Flip hung up the phone, he must have thought about that scared little boy in foster care who used laughter to survive. That boy was about to become the biggest star on television. When Thursday nights belonged to Flip. When The Flip Wilson Show premiered on September 17, 1970, America had never seen anything quite like it. Within months, Thursday nights at 8 o'clock became appointment television for over 20 million viewers. The show didn't just succeed, it dominated, consistently ranking in the top 10 most-watched programs for 4 straight years. The magic centered around Flip's incredible cast of characters, but none captured hearts like Geraldine Jones. When Flip transformed into this bold, confident woman with her signature wig and sassy attitude, television history was made every single week. Geraldine delivered lines that became part of everyday American conversation. "The devil made me do it," echoed in offices, schools, and dinner tables across the country. When Geraldine declared, "What you see is what you get," millions of Americans adopted it as their own personal motto. But Geraldine was just the beginning. Flip created Reverend Leroy, the smooth-talking preacher of the Church of What's Happening Now. There was Freddie the playboy, the slick ladies' man who always had the perfect pickup line. Each character felt real, lived in, and absolutely hilarious. Flip didn't just perform them, he became them completely. The show's guest list read like a who's who of entertainment royalty. Ray Charles brought his genius to Flip's stage. Cher showcased her incredible voice. Muhammad Ali, the most famous athlete in the world, sparred verbally with Geraldine in segments that had audiences crying with laughter. These weren't just celebrity appearances. They were genuine collaborations that broke down barriers between black and white entertainment. Behind the cameras, Flip wielded unprecedented power for any television performer, especially a black entertainer in 1977 America. He negotiated creative control that most white stars could only dream of. His salary reached heights that made him one of the highest-paid people on television, earning more per episode than many movie stars made per film. But that success came with crushing pressure. Flip carried the weight of representing his entire race on primetime television. Every joke had to work. Every episode had to deliver. Network executives watched his every move, knowing that his failure could set back opportunities for black performers by decades. The stress was enormous, but Flip made it look effortless week after week. The show became more than entertainment. It was a cultural phenomenon that proved America was ready for black excellence on television. However, even at the peak of this incredible success, the seeds of future problems were already being planted. The pressure of carrying a groundbreaking show, combined with the incredible wealth flowing into his life, would soon create challenges that Flip never saw coming. Money, mansions, and making it rain. By 1972, Flip Wilson was living like entertainment royalty, and he spent money like it would never stop flowing. The foster kid who once went hungry was now earning over $1 million per year, making him one of the wealthiest entertainers in America. That kind of money in early 70s dollars would be worth over $6 million today, and Flip made sure everyone knew he had made it big. His car collection read like a luxury dealership catalog. Flip owned multiple Rolls-Royces, each one customized to his exact specifications. He drove Ferraris, Maseratis, and Cadillacs, switching between them depending on his mood. Friends remember him buying cars on impulse, sometimes purchasing 3 or 4 vehicles in a single shopping trip just because he liked the way they looked. But cars were just the beginning. Flip owned luxury homes across the country, including properties in Beverly Hills, New York, and Palm Springs. The crown jewel of his real estate empire was the stunning Malibu mansion he purchased in 1973 for $800,000. Perched on a cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean, the sprawling estate featured 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, and panoramic views that took your breath away. The house included a recording studio, a game room with professional billiards tables, and entertaining spaces designed for hosting Hollywood's biggest names. Beyond television, Flip built a financial empire that seemed unstoppable. His comedy albums went gold, selling hundreds of thousands of copies. Major companies competed to sign him for endorsement deals, paying premium prices just to have his face associated with their products. Las Vegas casinos offered him astronomical sums to perform, sometimes paying more for a single weekend than most people earned in a year. At the height of his success, entertainment industry insiders estimated Flip's net worth at over $5 million. That made him not just wealthy, but genuinely rich by any standard of the time. The money seemed infinite, and Flip spent it like it was. His generosity became legendary in Hollywood circles. Flip supported dozens of family members and friends, paying for their homes, cars, and education. He bought expensive jewelry for himself and others, often purchasing diamond rings and gold watches worth tens of thousands of dollars. Designer clothes filled multiple closets across his various homes. When friends needed help, Flip opened his wallet without hesitation. The Malibu mansion became the center of his extravagant lifestyle, hosting parties that lasted for days. Celebrity guests wandered through rooms filled with custom furniture and original artwork. The house represented everything Flip had achieved, a palace that proved how far he had come from those brutal foster home days. But even as the money poured in and the lifestyle grew more lavish, warning signs were beginning to appear that this golden period might not last forever. The cracks behind the comedy mask. In 1974, at the absolute peak of his success, Flip Wilson made a decision that stunned Hollywood and broke the hearts of millions of fans. He announced that The Flip Wilson Show would end after just 4 seasons, walking away from television's top-rated variety series while it was still dominating Thursday nights. Industry executives begged him to reconsider, offering even more money and creative control. But Flip's mind was made up. The pressure of carrying a groundbreaking show had taken a devastating toll on the comedian's mental health. Flip confided to close friends that he felt trapped by his own success, suffocated by the constant demand to be funny, and the crushing responsibility of representing Black excellence on national television every single week. The foster kid, who had used comedy to survive, was now drowning in the very thing that had saved him. Flip retreated from public life, spending more time alone in his Malibu mansion and making fewer appearances at Hollywood events. The man who once thrived on audience energy now seemed to crave solitude above all else. When reporters called, he often refused interviews. When friends invited him to parties, he frequently declined. The gregarious entertainer was slowly becoming a recluse. His attempts at comeback proved disastrous. In 1976, a new variety show was canceled after just 1 season. Television pilots were rejected by every major network. The comedy landscape was rapidly changing, and Flip's style of character-based humor suddenly seemed old-fashioned compared to the edgy stand-up comedians taking over late-night television. By the early 1980s, it became clear that television had moved beyond Flip Wilson. Audiences wanted different types of comedy, and younger performers were capturing the spotlight that once belonged to him. The characters that had made him famous now felt dated, and Geraldine's catchphrases no longer dominated American conversations. Even more troubling were the financial warning signs that began appearing behind the scenes. Flip had invested heavily in several business ventures that failed spectacularly, including a restaurant chain and a record label that hemorrhaged money. His divorces proved costly, with expensive settlements that required him to liquidate assets and sell some of his luxury properties. Close friends noticed that Flip was spending money faster than he was earning it, but his pride prevented him from acknowledging the growing financial strain. The man who had once seemed financially invincible was beginning to live beyond his means, using credit and loans to maintain the lifestyle he had grown accustomed to during his peak earning years. The Malibu mansion, once the symbol of his incredible success, was starting to show signs of neglect as Flip struggled to keep up with maintenance costs and property taxes. What had been a palace of entertainment was slowly becoming a burden that would eventually contribute to his downfall. Inside the house that comedy built. The 8,000-square-foot Malibu mansion that Flip Wilson called home was nothing short of spectacular during its golden years. Perched dramatically on a cliff overlooking the endless Pacific Ocean, the house featured floor-to-ceiling windows that captured breathtaking sunsets every single evening. The main living room, with its soaring 20-foot ceilings and custom stone fireplace, could easily accommodate 50 guests for Flip's legendary parties. The entertainment spaces were designed for a true showman. The formal dining room seated 20 people around a massive mahogany table, while the adjacent game room featured professional-grade billiards tables, where comedy legends like Richard Pryor and Red Fox would spend hours perfecting their trick shots. The wraparound deck offered 360-degree views of the coastline, making it the perfect spot for intimate conversations with Hollywood's biggest stars. But the mansion's crown jewel was Flip's private recording studio, a soundproofed sanctuary where he crafted new material and perfected his famous characters. The studio was equipped with the latest recording technology, allowing Flip to work on comedy albums and television segments without leaving the comfort of his home. Late at night, neighbors could sometimes hear muffled laughter echoing from the studio as Flip tested new jokes on whatever friends happened to be visiting. For nearly 2 decades, the mansion served as Flip's refuge from Hollywood pressures and a gathering place where the greatest comedians of the era would come to relax and share stories. The house witnessed countless memorable moments, from impromptu comedy sessions to quiet dinners where entertainment legends planned their next projects. As Flip's financial troubles deepened in the 1980s and 90s, the mansion began showing signs of neglect. The once pristine gardens grew wild and overgrown. Paint started peeling from the exterior walls. The swimming pool, which had hosted so many celebrity pool parties, developed cracks and turned an unsettling shade of green. By the time of Flip's death in 1998, the property had fallen into serious disrepair. The recording studio sat silent and dusty. Windows were cracked or completely broken. The ocean-view deck that had been the site of so much laughter now creaked ominously in the coastal winds. Today, the abandoned mansion stands as a haunting reminder of dreams that once seemed impossible to destroy. Local residents report seeing strange lights in the windows late at night, though the electricity was cut off years ago. Trespassers have spray-painted graffiti on the walls, where priceless artwork once hung. The swimming pool has become a breeding ground for mosquitoes and debris. The house that comedy built has become a monument to how quickly fortune can fade. But the story of what led to this magnificent property being abandoned forever is even more heartbreaking than its current condition. How a comedy king lost his fortune. The man who once earned over $1 million per year would die with less than $50,000 to his name. A financial collapse so complete, it shocked even Hollywood insiders who had witnessed countless celebrity downfalls. Flip Wilson's journey from millionaire to near poverty began with a series of disastrous business decisions that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His real estate investments proved catastrophic. Flip purchased multiple commercial properties during the 1970s recession, believing he was buying low for future profits. Instead, these properties became financial black holes, requiring constant maintenance and generating little to no rental income. One shopping center investment alone cost him over $800,000 when the project failed and left him liable for construction debts. The restaurant chain he launched in the early 1980s was an even bigger disaster. Flip invested heavily in what he believed would become a nationwide franchise, but poor management and bad locations resulted in massive losses. Within 3 years, every restaurant had closed, leaving Flip responsible for lease obligations and unpaid supplier bills totaling over $1 million. His personal life proved equally expensive. 2 costly divorces in the 1980s and 90s drained his savings through enormous settlement payments and ongoing alimony obligations. Legal fees alone consumed hundreds of thousands of dollars as court battles dragged on for years. At one point, Flip was paying over $20,000 per month in combined alimony and child support. Meanwhile, his earning potential had virtually disappeared. Television producers no longer wanted the style of comedy that had made Flip famous. Stand-up comedy specials were offered to him at a fraction of his former fees. Guest appearances on variety shows paid only a few $1,000s, barely covering his monthly expenses. The man who once commanded 6-figure performance fees was reduced to accepting small roles in low-budget productions. The final blow came with his liver cancer diagnosis in the mid-1990s. Medical treatments, experimental therapies, and private specialists consumed his remaining resources at an alarming rate. Flip refused to accept charity or public assistance, maintaining his pride even as medical bills mounted into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. He quietly sold his remaining luxury possessions, including his beloved car collection and most of his real estate holdings. By 1997, Flip was forced to take out a massive mortgage on the Malibu mansion just to pay for continued cancer treatments. The house that had once been his greatest symbol of success became his last financial lifeline, mortgaged to the point where he owned very little equity in the property. When Flip Wilson died in November of 1998, his estate was valued at less than $50,000, with debts far exceeding his assets. The comedy king, who had once lived like royalty, died virtually penniless, setting the stage for what would happen to his beloved mansion in the years that followed. Alone in paradise, fighting for life. During his final years, Flip Wilson became a ghost, haunting his own mansion, slowly disappearing from public view while fighting a battle he was determined to keep private. The liver cancer diagnosis in 1995 devastated him, but Flip made a conscious decision to hide his illness from the entertainment world that had once celebrated him as America's funniest man. The Malibu mansion, now showing serious signs of neglect, became his sanctuary and his prison. Flip spent most days alone in the vast empty rooms, surrounded by peeling paint and broken furniture he could no longer afford to repair. Friends who visited during this period described a man who seemed smaller somehow, dwarfed by the grandeur of a house that had once perfectly matched his larger-than-life personality. His few remaining public appearances revealed glimpses of the old Flip Wilson magic, but also showed how much the disease had weakened him. During a 1997 interview on a late-night talk show, Flip appeared noticeably thinner and moved more slowly, yet he still managed to make the audience laugh with perfectly timed jokes and quick impressions. The performance lasted only 10 minutes, but it required enormous effort from a man who was quietly dying. Behind the scenes, Flip's daily life had become a struggle for basic dignity. Medical appointments consumed much of his time, requiring expensive treatments that ate away at his remaining resources. He often drove himself to chemotherapy sessions, too proud to ask for help and too broke to hire assistance. The man who had once traveled with an entourage now faced his greatest challenge, completely alone. The last months of 1998 were particularly brutal. Flip was in and out of hospitals, his condition deteriorating rapidly despite aggressive treatments. He continued to refuse offers of financial help from former colleagues, maintaining his independence even as bills piled up around him. The recording studio in his mansion sat silent, the place where he had once created comedy gold, now serving as a painful reminder of better times. On November 25, 1998, Flip Wilson died at Malibu Presbyterian Medical Center at age 64. Only his closest family members were present when he passed away, a stark contrast to the millions who had once tuned in to watch him perform. The man who had brought laughter to countless homes died quietly, his final moments witnessed by just a handful of people who truly knew the person behind the characters. The news of his death shocked fans who had no idea how sick he had been. For years, Flip had successfully hidden his illness, preferring to be remembered for his comedy rather than his suffering. His death marked the end of an era, but it was just the beginning of another chapter in the tragic story of his abandoned mansion. When America's funny man said goodbye forever. The news of Flip Wilson's death on November 25, 1998, sent shockwaves through an entertainment industry that had largely forgotten about the groundbreaking comedian. Fans who remembered Thursday nights with Geraldine Jones couldn't believe that the man who had once dominated television was gone, and many were stunned to learn he had been battling cancer in complete secrecy for years. The funeral arrangements revealed just how far Flip had fallen from his glory days. Instead of the elaborate Hollywood celebration that typically marks the passing of a major star, Flip's service was a modest affair held at a small church in Los Angeles. Fewer than 100 people attended, a heartbreaking contrast to the millions who had once laughed at his performances every week. There were no celebrity pallbearers, no massive floral displays, and no media circus surrounding the event. Fellow comedians who learned of his death expressed genuine shock, not just at his passing, but at the dire financial circumstances he had faced in his final years. Richard Pryor, despite his own health struggles, publicly stated that he had no idea Flip was broke and would have helped if he had known. Johnny Carson, who had given Flip some of his earliest television breaks, admitted he was devastated to learn that such a talented performer had died virtually penniless. Flip's death became a sobering reminder of how quickly fame and fortune can disappear in the entertainment industry. Here was a man who had been the highest-paid performer on television, yet he died with debts exceeding his assets. Industry veterans began sharing similar stories of performers who had earned millions during their peak years, only to face poverty in their later lives, highlighting a pattern that seemed to repeat itself generation after generation. The aftermath of his death proved even more painful for his family. With an estate valued at less than $50,000, but debts totaling hundreds of thousands, there was virtually nothing left to inherit. Legal battles erupted between family members over who would be responsible for his outstanding medical bills and mortgage payments. The fights became so bitter that some relatives stopped speaking to each other entirely. The Malibu mansion, heavily mortgaged and falling apart, became the center of the most contentious dispute. The bank wanted to foreclose immediately, but family members hoped to find a way to save the property that had meant so much to Flip. However, with no money available for repairs or mortgage payments, it quickly became clear that the house was lost forever. As lawyers argued over the remnants of Flip Wilson's estate, the mansion that had once hosted Hollywood's biggest stars sat empty and deteriorating, waiting for whatever fate would befall the final symbol of a comedy legend's rise and fall. What really happened to Flip's dream house? 25 years after Flip Wilson's death, his once magnificent Malibu mansion stands as one of California's most notorious abandoned celebrity homes, attracting urban explorers, ghost hunters, and curiosity seekers from around the world. The property has deteriorated beyond recognition, with massive holes in the roof, allowing rain to pour into rooms where comedy legends once gathered for unforgettable parties. Local residents report strange occurrences that have turned the mansion into the subject of countless paranormal investigations. Neighbors claim to hear laughter echoing from the empty recording studio late at night, even though the building has been without electricity for over a decade. Some visitors swear they've seen a figure in women's clothing moving through the broken windows, leading to speculation that Geraldine Jones herself haunts the ruins of Flip's former paradise. Multiple real estate developers have attempted to purchase and renovate the property, but every deal has fallen through under mysterious circumstances. One developer reported that construction workers refused to continue after tools went missing and strange voices were heard throughout the house. Another buyer backed out after discovering what appeared to be fresh footprints in the dust, despite the property being secured and empty for months. The mansion has become a powerful symbol of Hollywood's dark side, representing how quickly fame can fade and fortunes can disappear. Tourism websites now include it on lists of abandoned celebrity homes, alongside the decaying properties of other forgotten stars who died broke and alone. Photography enthusiasts risk trespassing charges to capture images of the crumbling structure, sharing them on social media with captions about the fleeting nature of success. Despite the tragic end to his story, Flip Wilson's contributions to entertainment history remain undeniable. He broke racial barriers that seemed impossible to cross, proving that America was ready for black excellence on primetime television. His characters, especially Geraldine Jones, influenced countless performers who followed in his footsteps. Modern comedians from Dave Chappelle to Tyler Perry have acknowledged Flip's groundbreaking work as inspiration for their own boundary-pushing performances. The recording studio where Flip created his magic may be silent and filled with debris, but his catchphrases still echo in American culture decades after his death. "The devil made me do it" remains part of our collective vocabulary, proving that true comedic genius never really dies. Comedy historians consider The Flip Wilson Show a crucial stepping stone that made it possible for future generations of diverse performers to find success on television. As the Malibu mansion continues its slow decay into the Pacific coastline, It serves as both a cautionary tale about the entertainment industry's brutal realities and a monument to one man's incredible journey from foster care to television history, reminding us that some legacies survive long after the laughter stops.